Hello, my name is Susan Patterson, and I have done a project with EDU587 from Georgetown College, culturally responsive teaching, and learning more about Mexican immigrants. Mexico features a diverse geography. Mexico is the third largest country in Latin America, and it is in southern North America. Society in Mexico is extremely wealthy or extreme poverty. Mexico is one of the larger economic and political forces in Latin America. Even though they have lots of challenges, the country encompasses things as drug abuse, crime, and government corruption, but it is still one of the biggest economic and political forces in Latin America. Mexico does share a common border with the United States. It also is bordered by the Pacific Ocean to the south and by the Gulf of Mexico on its east side. Guadalajara is located in west central Mexico. Guadalajara is the capital and the largest city of the Mexican state of Jalisco. The city is in the central area of Jalisco in the western part of Mexico. The city of Amacuzac is located about 6 hours east of Guadalajara, Mexico. The climate is dry and mild except for the rainy season, which extends from around July to mid-September. Guadalajara is also rich in Mexican culture. The area has become famous for its tequila, which is manufactured locally, its mariachi music, sombreros, and Mexican hat dances. They also have rodeos. As far as religion, Catholicism is the most dominant religion in the country. About 83% of the population, as of 2010, were practicing Catholicism in Mexico. More recently, the number of Catholics has been declining. And I think that is due to the growth of other Christian denominations. These are mainly various like Protestant churches, some Mormonism, but that consists of about 10% of the population. As far as language, there are several different languages that are spoken in Mexico, with a large majority of the population that is fluent in Spanish, while some indigenous Mexicans are monolingual in indigenous languages. Currently, today, Mexicans mostly speak Spanish and learn English as a second language. As many as 100 Native American languages are still spoken in Mexico. 80% of Mexicans who speak an indigenous language also speak Spanish. History of Mexico. Mexico is a country that is rich in history, tradition, and culture. Mexico is made up of 31 states and one federal district. It is the third largest country in Latin America and has one of the largest populations. It has more than 100 million people, making it the home of more people who speak Spanish than any other country in the world. Evidence of past cultures and events are apparent everywhere in Mexico. Many of Mexico's rural areas are still inhabited by indigenous people whose lifestyles are quite similar to those of their ancestors. There are many areas that have remained mostly densely populated throughout Mexico's history. Other areas of Mexico are more isolated settlements, and they're centered around mines, mission sites, and military camps. Mining was the biggest cause of population redistribution in Mexico at one time. Silver mining towns such as Durango were founded in the late 16th century, and they represented the first European settlements outside the central core. It wasn't until the mid 19th century that large scale ranching was introduced in the north part of Mexico. Nearly four-fifths of Mexicans now live in cities. By the early 21st century, though, over 100 cities had populations in excess of 100,000 people. Major cities include Mexico City and Guadalajara. Celebrations. The Hispanic culture has many lively celebrations and holidays. One very popular holiday is Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo is a holiday that celebrates the date of the Mexican Army's victory over France. It was a battle that took place in 1862. That celebration is held on the 5th day of May, and traditions during that holiday celebration include military parades, recreations of the Battle of Pueblo, and other festive events. The Day of the Dead is a Mexican holiday celebrated throughout Mexico. It's a holiday that takes place over several days, and it focuses on gatherings of family and friends to celebrate and remember friends and family members who have died. Um, the celebration helps support their spiritual journey to eternity. Plans are made for the celebration throughout the year, including gatherings of goods to be offered to the dead. During this 3 day period, families usually clean and decorate graves. Many plan face paintings and costumes. Um, there's lots of festive music and food for the celebration. Many of the family members visit the cemeteries where their loved ones are buried, and they decorate their graves and have ofrendas, which are altars that include Mexican marigold flowers, candles, and pictures. Food and culture is a huge part of the Mexican culture, daily and on special occasions such as holidays and celebrations. Their cuisine varies greatly by regions. In Mexico, the types of food depends greatly on staples such as corn, beans, and squash. Rice is another popular food usually served there with beans. Mexicans tend to make a lot of use of avocados, chili peppers, amaranth, tomatoes, potatoes, and lentils. Hot peppers, of course, and salt are the most common condiments used in Mexico. The women like to gather and cook in the kitchens, big meals together. Food is a special bond for Mexican families and celebrations. Death and funeral customs. Since the early stages of Mexican culture, death and dying have been part of life, embraced as a part of life. The Mayans and Aztecs were groups of warriors who practiced human sacrifice. Um, so it seemed like it was a more casual acceptance of death. With this ancient belief, though, along with Catholicism, it's apparent that there is a deeply religious aspect to death in Mexico also. Some current practices show acceptance of death as part of life, such as the rituals of the Day of the Dead that we talked about, which is a celebration that honors those who are deceased. The celebration is meant to ease grief and affirm the belief in the afterlife of the loved one. Ofrendas or altars are often set up in people's homes in remembrance of those people. Um, Mexicans do like to decorate graves of the loved ones. They adorn them with some of their favorite things, food, favorite clothing, favorite pictures. Next is education in Mexico. School attendance is required for children ages 6 to 18. In the past 10 years, those preschool has also been deemed necessary or mandatory. The public schools in Mexico are funded by the federal government. Rural schools are often the poorest of the schools in Mexico. Many families move to more urban areas because of the availability of better schools for their children. Even though 1/7 of all school-age children do not attend school, almost 1/3 of adults have not completed primary school. Private schools are considered superior to public ones, so a lot of people like for their children to go to private schools if possible, but it's expensive for that to happen, just like in the United States. Recommendations for teaching English language learners. Um, Culturally responsive teaching is something that we all talk about now, and as leaders in education, we should consider the best research-based approaches to support culturally responsive schools. First, we as educators should match our classroom instruction to cultural norms for our students. It's most helpful for social interactions, which enhance students' social skills, development, and problem solving ability. Um, Also, it's important for us to consider the students' prior academic learning and experiences when we are lesson planning and delivering instruction. Teachers in the United States with students from Mexico need a basic understanding of the education system in Mexico so that we can relate to their their needs, their academic needs. In order to better serve ELL population from Mexico, teachers need to learn about prior social, economic, and educational conditions that they experienced in Mexico. Teachers need to learn what the ELL students know, what they need to know, what they need to learn, and their learning styles. Also, as leaders in education, we should consider the best research-based approaches. It's most helpful for social interactions that enhance our students, ELL students' social skills and problem solving. Um, we should also make positive instructional use of students' skills and behaviors by creating assignments that require group interactions. Um, we should make sure that the tools and newsletters and things that go home should be translated, and make sure that we always have interpreters when parents are at the school for meetings or even for just community activities that we are offering at the school. We need to embrace the strengths and address the diverse learning needs of our increasingly multicultural, multilingual student population, and that requires a collaborative effort from school leadership and teachers. We should all work together to welcome and continue to grow our culturally responsive school environments. Recognizing the strengths of our cultural diversity only makes our schools stronger and our classrooms stronger. These are my references that I use to find my information.